Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of After Laughter. I am here with Gianmarco Soresi. Say hello, Gianmarco.
Hello.
Hello. Hello, we're gonna be looking at a set of his, and here we go.
Hello. My name is just Gianmarco Soresi. My dad's Italian, my mom's Jewish, so I'm 100% Italian.
You know, everyone has I'm Jewish and blah, blah, blah. Like my original, way back in the day, was I'm Jewish and Italian, so I'm a matzo pizza. And it's like, it's fine, but this version of it is a more clever joke.
Yeah, it's less hacky than like, bruh, Jewish thing, Italian. It's like, I do agree that like I like this version better.
It's just like, it's a twist on an old, everyone does it thing.
If you don't know Italian, we do a lot of hugging. We kiss each other goodbye. Not everyone's used to it. Like my roommate, who's not Italian, when he first saw my dad and I kiss, he was just like, ew. Do you kiss your dad in public? And I was like, yeah. You know what'd be weird? If I only kissed him in private. Hey, cops, let's get out of here. For a proper goodbye.
For me, opening is the hardest thing in anything. But the dad kiss joke is kind of like, I wrote it in my first year in. It's my gold, works anywhere. If I was headlining in South Korea, I think it would land it makes sense.
Anyone can get this joke. It feels very personal, so it doesn't feel like you're putting like a character on towards us or performing at us. It feels like you're letting us into your life. It takes a really grounded approach, because a lot of times comedians, I feel like get nervous for that first laugh, but you seem like perfectly relaxed and like, hey, if I get there, I get there. I'm just talking about myself, so I love this as an opener.
Sometimes, some comics and me too goes for that first joke too fast. And like this joke, for me, it has the perfect amount of like, where is this going, and then it pays off.
What I absolutely love is you do such an amazing job at riding the wave of this joke, waiting just long enough, and then putting in the extra punchline to let it reignite the laugh.
I kissed him in private.
Just filling the silence with like acting, which is great. Wait, reignition number one. Reignition number two.
Like the timing thing, like there's no joke that I've told more in my life than this joke. And so like it's just deeply ingrained. That last line, I had 20 variations where I went for a Sicilian goodbye, for a family goodbye, for a familia goodbye, for a Soresi goodbye, and proper goodbye ended up being the one that popped more often than not. And it's one of those jokes that's just been through the grinder every which way.
I love that you say that, because the one thing that laughter usually as a whole suffers from is I tend to make people do new material, and so we never get one of those jokes that has just been like so perfectly honed, and it shows here how good it is to have those jokes that have been sort of like run through the mill.
Now, my father was not born in Italy, but in the 1930s, my grandpa Luigi, that's his actual name, my grandpa Luigi and my grandma Donkey Kong immigrated.
I absolutely love this joke after the last one, because it seems like, oh, once again, he's just going to tell us honest stuff about his family. And it's the first time you really go wacky with it. And because you sort of bought in all these honesty dollars with the audience, I feel like they're ready to go with you on this first like zany thing. I think it's the perfect way to introduce like a crazy element to your set.
I'm still figuring out the balance between wacky or like for the sake of the joke and real. I think it's a tough thing, but I like both. The audience can't feel like, oh, you just lied to us. That's not funny. So it's like the punchline has to be so informative about some kind of truth and great that the audience goes like, okay, you can fool me again. That's fine.
From the island of Nintendo.
Only times you actually interact with the audience, you like semi-break, and it gets such a big laugh out of nowhere.
Nintendo.
I would never force a break out of nowhere, but if they're laughing and I feel a little giggle behind my face, I will indulge. And I think it's fun to, if I'm having fun, let them in on that.
Someday that joke's gonna be racist. Someday I'm gonna do that voice, someone in the back will be like, who the fuck do you think you are? And I'll be a smart ass, I'll be like, it's a me, Mario.
Yeah, I love that joke because it's both continuing to be wacky, but it's like, this is a wacky joke that I just did, so you get away with it because you're not trying to lie to the audience. You're like, yeah, this is a crazy thing that I just did. Let me talk about it and heighten it.
And I'll get canceled, we'll have to go on Twitter and be like, I'm so sorry.
We are now at our first 2 minutes, so right now we have about 15 laughs, that's over a laugh every 10 seconds, and we have 1 minute and 4 of audience reaction, so the audience has been laughing more than 50% of the time. It shows like A, how little fat there is in this, like how good these jokes are, B, like how live this audience is. It's amazing to be able to have more than 50% audience interaction means like, I talk, you laugh, I talk, you laugh, I talk, you laugh, you laugh, I talk, you laugh, which is just like, it's a very like difficult feat.
I've kind of ground a lot of my material at a club called LOL in Times Square, and it's notoriously tough and rowdy in that people have been barked in, 10 minutes before. They're not people who are like, I know what a comedy show is, I know how to behave in a comedy show. And it's because of that I've had to slim down jokes that just pop, 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 pop. The risk is you can come up with jokes that are too simple, but if you keep yourself honest, and you take stuff that you fine-tuned in that kind of space, in a space that's open for comedy and people are in a good mood, it just obliterates.
My parents are divorced. My parents, they got divorced when I was 7 days old. So like most kids, my first word was Mama, but my next 5 were told me to tell you.
It took me a long time to figure out the timing of told me to tell you. I used to go way too fast, and it's a heady joke. And there will be times, for example, at LOL, this is an example where I'll do tapes sometimes, and that joke would bomb, but then in like a crowd where people got it, it would explode, and it was one I believed in with all my heart, so I kept it.
We see it in its ideal form here, but it's good to put that thing of like, just because a joke doesn't work doesn't mean it's a bad joke. It could be the crowd, it could just be one artifice of how you delivered it that night. There's just like so many variables.
My parents did get divorced before I was 1, and so I was like, this is the truest statement on this subject matter.
Once again, it starts with a very truthful, very like, I am not lying to you audience statement, and then it takes it into wackiness, which is why I think all these jokes are just killing, is because you do not feel like a fake person at all right now, even when you go into voices and like you're heightening the stuff, because it feels like you've earned it.
The custody battle got so ugly that when I was old enough to talk, the judge ruled I could decide where I wanted to live. So I moved in with the judge. My parents think.
So what are your thoughts on actively waiting for the laughs to end?
I tend to go too fast in general as a person. So when it's this hot, I'm like, I can feel when to move on. I started listening to Anthony Jeselnik kind of later into my stand-up and started really appreciating those kind of building of tension for one big punchline and then letting it ride and then letting it go almost back to zero. you have to have a lot of confidence.
Your first joke and your opening of the set really shows that, and like, there's not a real joke for the first like 30 seconds, but then the laugh payoff, we have 50% audience reaction. It's such a rolling laugh because we built up this big tension that it makes it worth the sort of setup time. You, outside of stand-up, are great actors, so you're filling all these silences with like active silence.
They hated each other, but I will say this, whenever I got cast like in a school musical, my mom and dad would always show up on opening night, and my dad would bring this big bouquet of daffodils because he remembered my mom is allergic.
That's just a great misdirect. It feels real. It feels like the audience knows exactly where you're going. We left turn at the last moment, and it still makes perfect sense.
I actually went to college for musical theater, and I have a doctorate in imagination. That means I'm what's known here in show business as a triple threat. Threat number 1, I can act. Threat number 2, I can sing. And threat number 3, I'm annoying.
Is the glasses put down, is that part of the choreo for that joke?
I'm very fidgety, and I'll play with the glasses a lot. I play with my hair a lot. Sometimes I think it's like a habit I will eventually get over. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know if you've ever seen, what's his name? Curb Your Enthusiasm. He plays like Larry's, one of his good friends. But he's like this whole set, he does his hair, and it's like, it's very Jewish, it's very neurotic. And I lean into that sometimes with the glasses. So it's not intentional, but I probably do that same thing every time.
If it wasn't intentional, it was just sort of instinct. And I think it really fit with the joke of that you're doing this misdirect and you sort of like changed your look for this I'm annoying sort of thing.
What used to happen is I would go, threat number 1 I can act, threat number 2 I can sing, threat number 3 I do a tap dance. They would applaud, just kind of like oh, you did a thing. But that applause would kill the punchline. So when I figured out to sing the sing, get an applause on that, then for the third one they wouldn't applaud. That's just like science of human behavior working.
I love that you mentioned that of like the psychology of human behavior, because so much of stand-up is just like, how do I trick people here? How do I make them think this? How do I make sure they're comfortable after this? So much of just like weird psychology, like group psychology is in this, like, telling penis jokes that it's interesting.
Last year was very good for me. I made my TV debut last year on Law & Order SVU. Well, thank you, but I played Ice-T.
How do we feel like the second 2 minutes compared to the first 2 minutes?
I got it rolling, and I feel confident enough to go more into big setup, one big punch. And in a hot crowd like this, sometimes that one punch will get an applause break, and that's all you need. That feels complete.
Second 2 minutes, we've gotten about 52 seconds of audience laugh, so it's not quite as strong as the first. Anything above 30% audience reaction feels really strong. This is like 48%, so still like super strong. Only about 8 laughs, but the laughs have been longer because we've had almost as much audience reaction time. So it really plays into what you're just saying of like, it's just like one punchline and then we let the applause break go.
Sometimes I've learned, like, I will try to have little jokes along the way within the setup. And I'm like, you know what? It's this little chuckle here or this little laugh here takes away from the tension I'm building to release later.
I played Ice-T's waiter. Small part, but I want to do well for it, so to prepare for the role, I actually became a waiter for 12 years. I used to have one of those jobs where, like, between taking orders, I'd like sing songs and dance on the tables, and that's not what Chipotle is known for. I can't help it.
That is one that I'm trying to figure out a different way to end. It's veering on the edge of like, is this just too cutesy? I will totally do a cute joke if I can then have one that is fucked up.
Well, especially because like if you can get the audience to start laughing and you're continuing the laugh with that next joke, they're more likely to buy into the messed up one.
Extrovert and introvert. Do you guys know what that is? Yes. Yeah, it basically means like when I'm talking, I'm very extroverted, but if you're talking, I'd rather be alone. Some people call that an asshole, but I prefer celebrity. I did have one.
Sometimes with extroverted introvert, which is a joke I slip in a lot because it's, you know, quick payoff.
Great one-liner, and it can fit with like any set if you need just like an extra 20 seconds or whatever.
Yeah, but sometimes I think I'm like, those tags aren't worth it. The thing I'm working on is how can I use my words to come up with the smartest, most interesting, funny thought. And it's like I did it. And anything on top of that is milking, which you can do, but if you want the tightest 5 minutes, you know, move on to the next cat.
Audition a couple years ago for Game of Thrones. And obviously I didn't get it, or your tickets would have cost a lot more. But I walked in, I was ready to go, and the director said to me, first, we need to see you in your underwear, which is not what I was expecting. So I put my underwear back on.
Great. End of set. How do we feel about that last joke?
I feel proud of that reveal. And when you really got a good reveal, you can just sit in it because you know it's gonna pop. You can take your time, and that's why it gets this big reaction, because it's just like, it's so unexpected.
Great. So this last minute and a half, we've gotten about 50 seconds of audience interaction. We've gotten about 10 laughs. There's a laugh every about 9 seconds. But once again, the laughs have been lasting so long that like I don't care. Like I'm not expecting the laughs to go higher. I wouldn't want the laughs to be higher at the detriment of the audience reaction. Overall, for this whole set, our average has been above 50% audience interaction, which is for 5, almost 6 minutes, is exhausting. Think about it. It's like I talk, you laugh. I talk, you laugh. I talk, you laugh. But I do that for 5.5 minutes. One thing I do on every After Laughter is I do a do's and a don't. So like, if you're doing the set again, what would you want to do that you did here?
I have some new, tighter divorce stuff I would put in there. I would want to explore this kiss callback where I would somehow get it to my dad again, and it basically ends with like, my dad likes dating younger, I like dating older, so when we go on a double date, it looks like a family dinner. And the waiter sees me kissing my mom and my dad kissing my sister, and he's like, I hope they're Italian. And that's the callback. So I've still been trying to see if I can refine that to big applause break, and I'm out.
So do's and don'ts, interesting that it's mostly material based and not performance elements. Your MO of like, I just want to be the cleverest words, and I don't want to have to rely on like performance gimmicks because it is just me and a mic. So it makes sense that your do's and don'ts are mostly about the words that you're crafting.
I feel very happy with the performance.
Yeah, I mean, you should. Once again, just really on. This is currently the record to beat of all After Laughters that we've done as far as the audience reaction percentage. So it's a great example of just like really strong, tight stand up in a live crowd.